Most people treat a discovery call like a job interview. They go in with a list of questions, then ask them one by one, and the lead sits there feeling interrogated. And then they wonder why the call fell flat, why the lead seemed guarded, and why nothing real came out of the conversation. I know this because I used to do the same thing. But here's what I do now instead, and why it changes everything. The problem with the traditional discovery call is the dynamic that it creates from the very first minute. You show up, you ask the lead to tell you about their business. They give you a surface level answer. You ask another question, they give you another surface level answer. And the whole time, both of you know what is actually happening. You are deciding whether to pitch them or not, and they are deciding whether to trust you or not. That dynamic makes real conversation almost impossible because nobody opens up when they feel like they are being evaluated. And here's the other problem. If you are asking generic questions like what your biggest challenges are, what your goals are, you are going to get generic answers. And generic answers do not give you enough to build anything specific or compelling. So the pitch you end up making is also generic. The lead does not feel seen. They feel like they have just talked to another agency. So what I changed is this. Firstly, I stopped calling it discovery call entirely. I now call it an AEC strategy session. And that name change is not just cosmetic. It completely reframes what the call is for. A discovery call is about me finding out what I need to know, while a strategy session is about them getting clarity on their own business. Now, those two are completely different things, even if the questions you ask are similar. You see, when someone books a strategy session, they show up expecting to walk away with something valuable. And that expectation alone makes them more open and more willing to go deep and more engaged in the conversation. The actual questions that I ask are not that different from what anyone else asks, but the frame I put around those questions changes everything about how the lead responds. The first thing I do at the start of every strategy session is reference something specific from a previous conversation. Not something like, yeah, we spoke about this before, something specific. For example, in a recent strategy session that I run with an architectural firm owner in Australia, I opened with this. From our previous conversations, what stood out to me the most was how operationally aware you already are, especially around feasibility, approvals, and workflow unpredictability. So, today I want to explore where friction is still compounding internally and whether there are opportunities to reduce that intelligently without adding more complexity. One sentence. And in that one sentence, I showed him that I had actually listened to everything he said. I named something specific about the way he thinks, and I framed the session not as me pitching him, but as us exploring the business together. That opening alone changes the entire dynamic of the call. The rule is simply never start a strategy session cold. Always anchor to something real you already know about them. The second thing that I do is make the goal of the call explicit. And I make sure that the goal sounds like it is for them and not for me. I tell them what I'll do today is walk through your workflows and operations with you. And once we have mapped everything out, I'll take it all back, build a tailor made plan, and bring it back to you on a separate call. This does two things. First, it removes pressure. There is no pitch coming in at the end of the call, so they can relax. And second, it tells them what they are going to get, which is a plan built specifically for their business. They are not being sold to, they are being served. Now, this is where most people either go too shallow or jump straight to the point they think they already know. What I do instead is walk through the entire business from the very top. How do leads come in? How do you qualify them? What happens when they come on board? How does a project move through your systems? Where do things slow down? And where do things fall apart? I'm not fishing for a specific answer. I'm mapping everything. And something interesting happens when you do this. The lead starts connecting dots they had never connected before. In the same strategy session that I mentioned before, I asked the firm owner what creates the biggest downstream surprises, operationally speaking. And he went deep immediately. He talked about amendments, how every small client change creates a chain reaction of checking files, reissuing drawings, updating records, resending emails. He said every time they come back, even if it is just change this note, the actual note takes 8 seconds, but the whole process of it takes 30 minutes. Times that by 10, 15 jobs, and it adds up. He had never said that before, not in that way, not with that level of clarity. That question unlocked something, and I would not have gotten there if I had jumped straight to, so what are your pain points? Now, this is the most important step, and most people skip it entirely. After I have walked through the whole business with them, I stop. I summarize everything I heard, but I say it more clearly and more precisely than they said it themselves. With this particular client, I said something like, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like this is less of a tooling problem and more of an operational layer problem. The information lives across emails, Monday.com, Google Drive, and in people's heads. And individually, each system works, but collectively, there is no single operational layer that actually controls the business. And every time volume increases, the fragmentation multiplies the friction. He responded with, yeah, big time. That is exactly what we are dealing with. Now, that moment when someone hears their own problem described back to them more clearly than they could describe it themselves, that is the moment trust is built. Not when you pitch, not when you show your portfolio, when you show them you actually understand what is happening inside their business. And at that point, you are no longer just another agency, you are the person who gets it. The last step is how you end the call. And this is where I see the most mistakes. Most people end a discovery call with a pitch. So, here's what I can do for you, here's the price, and what do you think? I end the strategy session like this. I've got good notes from you today. Let me take this back, think through what makes the most sense for your specific situation, and come back to you with a proper plan. Does it make sense to lock in a follow up now so we can go through it together? And they almost always say yes because I've just spent 20 minutes showing them that I care about getting it right. So, of course, they want to see what I come back with. No pitch, no close attempt, just a natural next step that they genuinely want to take. Now, at the end of that particular strategy session that I mentioned earlier, the firm owner said something that stuck with me. He said, and I quote, I'm pretty impressed at how well you pick up on the little things that I say. You noted it somehow, and then you are like, oh, that is that thing. It is pretty wild, actually. He was not impressed by a pitch. He was not impressed by a case study or a portfolio. He was impressed because he felt genuinely heard. Because the conversation helped him see his own business more clearly than he had before he had gotten on that call. Now, this is what a good strategy session does. It does not just help you understand the lead, it helps the lead understand themselves. And when someone walks away from a conversation feeling clearer, more understood, and more aware of what they actually need, they want to keep working with the person who gave them that clarity. And that person should be you. So, if you are running discovery calls and they are not converting, do not try to change your pitch. Just change the framing. Stop trying to qualify and start trying to understand them. The conversion follows the clarity. I post this stuff oftenly. The process, the mistakes, what is actually working as I build. So if you want to follow along, just subscribe.